I never thought I'd find myself in this kind of mess, but here I am, laying it all out because I need to get it off my chest and maybe find some clarity. My name's Dave, by the way. Married to Lisa for about 10 years now. She's always been a bit of a handful, bitchy, manipulative, and sharp-tongued. But I loved her, or at least I thought I did. We have a son, Jake, who's 6, and for the most part I thought we had a normal life. She was a typical wife, a little high maintenance, but I played along. Everything started to feel off a few months ago. Small things at first. She'd be distant, secretive, and would get defensive when I asked what was wrong. I'd catch her checking her phone more than usual, hiding texts or deleting calls. I figured maybe she was just stressed with work or the usual woman stuff. But then I noticed her phone getting more guarded, and she'd leave the room when I entered, claiming she was taking a call from her sister or some work thing. Honestly, I didn't want to believe it was anything serious, but the gut feeling gnawed at me. The biggest red flag came about 2 weeks ago. I work long hours, but I always make sure to be home for Jake's karate lessons. They're important to me. Lisa was always supportive of Jake's karate, proud even. She'd take photos, cheer him on, be the perfect wife. But that day, something was different. She was unusually giddy before I left, texting something on her phone that she quickly hid when I came into the room. I didn't think much of it. I was tired, wanted to relax, and just brushed it off. That Saturday, I decided to surprise her at the dojo. I wanted to watch Jake get his black belt. I thought she'd be proud, and honestly, I wanted to see her in her element. I arrived early, camera in hand, and waited outside the dojo. The ceremony was beautiful. The kids looked so proud, and Lisa looked genuinely happy. When Jake was called forward to receive his belt, she was crying, proud tears streaming down her face. I was proud of him, too. After the ceremony, everyone was taking pictures, congratulating each other. Lisa was in her element, bossy and bitchy as ever, telling everyone to move for the perfect shot. I snapped some photos, feeling good, thinking how lucky I was to have such a strong, beautiful family. Then she pulled me aside and said she wanted to do something special after the celebration. She told me she arranged a small private celebration in the dojo office, just us, to celebrate Jake's achievement. She said it'd be more meaningful, and I bought it. It seemed innocent enough. The thing is, she kept mentioning how proud she was of Jake, how he worked so hard, and how he deserved a quiet moment with his parents after the big day. I didn't think much of it at the time, but later I'd realized that was where everything changed. The dojo was busy, everyone congratulating Jake, taking photos and celebrating. I went into the office with her, thinking it'd be a quick moment, maybe a toast with some drinks and then back to the party. I never expected what I saw next. She was in there, half lying on the desk, her clothes half off, the karate instructor, Mark, barely trying to hide his cocky grin. They were deep into it, her moaning softly, the sounds muffled but unmistakable. I froze. My blood ran cold. My wife, my partner, the mother of my child, cheating with our son's karate instructor right in the dojo office during his celebration. It was like a punch to the gut, a punch I wasn't prepared for. I stared, frozen, not knowing what to do. Everything I thought I knew about her, about us, just shattered in that moment. I wanted to yell, to scream, to storm in and tear them apart, but I couldn't move. My mind was racing so fast I could barely breathe. I didn't want to believe it. I kept telling myself she was probably just talking to him about some future training, some advanced thing she was planning for Jake. That's what she'd told me later. We were discussing training, nothing more. But the security cameras told a different story. They caught her visiting him multiple times over the past few months, always discussing training, always late at night, always sneaking around. And that day, it all came crashing down. I don't remember how long I just stood there, staring at them. It felt like an eternity, but in reality, maybe only a few seconds. My mind was a storm of confusion, anger, and sheer disbelief. My wife, Lisa, who I thought was the woman I loved, was in the act with Mark, the karate instructor we trusted to teach our son discipline and respect. I had trusted her with everything, and now I saw her betraying me, betraying our family right in front of my eyes. The worst part was her reaction. She looked up, saw me in the doorway, and for a split second her eyes widened with shock. Then she quickly scrambled to cover herself, pulling her clothes back on, her face twisting into that bitchy, defiant expression she always wore when she thought she was in the right. I watched her brush herself off, straighten up, and then, as if she hadn't just been caught in the act, she smirked and said, "Oh, you're here. Nice of you to join us." Her voice was sarcastic, like she didn't even care I'd just seen her cheating. Mark, nervously trying to button his pants, looked at me with a mixture of guilt and annoyance. The room was filled with silence except for the faint sounds of Jake outside, still celebrating, unaware of what was happening inside. I couldn't even speak. At first, my fists clenched, my head spinning with rage. I felt all the blood drain from my face, and then a burning heat of betrayal took over. I finally managed to get out, voice trembling, "What the hell is going on here?" Lisa's smirk deepened. "Oh, honey, you're overreacting. They're just talking about Jake's training, nothing more. You're always so paranoid. I was just helping him with some advanced techniques, that's all." She tried to play it cool, but I saw the desperation behind her eyes. That wasn't just discussing training, that was sex, that was betrayal, and I knew it. I looked at Mark, who was now fully dressed but avoided eye contact. I felt my stomach turn. My mind was racing, trying to process everything. How could she lie so easily? How could she look at me and pretend it was all innocent? I'd seen the way she looked at him, the way her body responded. It wasn't just a quick fling, it was months of secret meetings, sneaking around while I was working or out of town. All the signs I had ignored or been too blind to see. I wanted to lose it, to tear her apart, to scream, to shout, to make her feel as small as she had made me feel in that moment. But I couldn't. Instead, I turned and walked out of that office, my legs shaky but my mind sharper than ever. I knew I had to get out of there, to gather my thoughts, to figure out what to do next. I grabbed my phone and left the dojo, not saying a word to anyone, not even looking back at her. Back home, I couldn't sleep that night. I kept replaying everything I saw, everything I felt. The shock, the betrayal, the utter humiliation. I thought about our son, Jake, and how he was so innocent, how he looked up to his mother, thinking she was perfect. I wondered how I'd tell him someday. I felt like a fool, betrayed by the person I trusted most, and at the same time I was furious. Furious at Lisa, furious at Mark, furious at myself for not seeing it sooner. I knew I couldn't stay silent. I had to confront her. But I also knew this wasn't going to be a simple talk. Lisa was the kind of woman who lied her way out of everything, who could spin stories with that bitchy smirk on her face and make it seem like I was the crazy one. I had to be smart. I had to plan. Because if I didn't, I'd be the fool forever. And so I started to gather evidence, screenshots of her secret messages, recordings of her lying about discussing training, the security footage from the dojo. I wasn't going to be played for a fool anymore. This was war, and I was going to make her regret it. I just didn't know yet how or how deeply. But one thing was clear: this wasn't going to end quietly. Not for me, not for her, not for Mark. The next few days were a whirlwind of planning and simmering rage. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her in that office, that smirk on her face, that moment of pure betrayal. I started digging into everything I could find: texts, emails, security footage from the dojo. I needed proof, concrete evidence. She was a liar, and I knew I had to catch her in her lies to really make her understand how deep she'd screwed up. Lisa, of course, played the victim whenever I confronted her. She was bitchy, defensive, throwing tantrums like a toddler. "You're overreacting," she snapped at me when I pressed her about the messages she'd been exchanging with Mark. "It's just a stupid flirtation. Stupid people do that. You're making it a bigger deal than it is." She insisted she was just helping him with Jake's training, that she never meant for it to go this far. But her words sounded hollow, rehearsed. I knew better. I'd seen enough to know she'd been stringing this guy along for months. I decided to set a trap. I kept my phone ready, recording her whenever she was alone, making sure I'd catch her red-handed. I also started secretly following her, checking her whereabouts, monitoring her calls. The more I found, the clearer it became. She was completely unrepentant. She was bitchy, dismissive, and lying like it was second nature. Every time she spat some excuse, I felt a burning fire inside me grow hotter. One evening, she came home late, smelling of perfume I didn't recognize. When I asked where she'd been, she shrugged and said She'd gone out with her so-called friends, but I was pretty sure she was with Mark. The security footage confirmed it. She'd been at his place, not just for training, but for sex. I watched her get into his car, her hand resting on his thigh, giggling like a damn teenager. That was the moment I decided enough was enough. I couldn't keep pretending. I needed to make her pay. I waited until the next day when she was at work, and then I called a lawyer. I wasn't planning on just divorcing her. No, I wanted to destroy her, make her regret ever messing around. I wanted to expose her for the lying, cheating bitch she was. I also reached out to a private investigator. I paid him good money to dig deeper, get more proof. My goal was simple. I wanted her to face the consequences of her actions. I wanted her to understand how much she'd hurt me, how deeply she'd betrayed my trust. While all this was happening, Lisa kept playing her little game, throwing blame back my way. "You're paranoid," she spat one night during a heated argument. "You think I'm the one cheating. Maybe I should be asking you what you're hiding." She accused me of being controlling, insecure, and said I was just jealous because I couldn't handle her success. But I knew better. I knew she was lying. I'd seen her in that office in bed with Mark. I had the proof now, and I wasn't going to let her dismiss it. The emotional impact hit me hard. I was furious, yes, but also deeply hurt. How could she do this? How could she pretend to be the perfect wife and mother, only to turn around and cheat on me right under my nose? The betrayal cut so deep I didn't know if I'd ever be able to forgive her. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Every time I thought about her in bed with that bastard, my stomach churned. My trust was shattered, my sense of security gone. I was angry at myself for not seeing the signs sooner, angry at her for being so manipulative, and angry at Mark for being just as much a piece of shit. But I also knew I wasn't going down without a fight. I was already planning my next move, deciding how to confront her with all this evidence. I wanted her to realize how badly she'd screwed up, how much damage she'd done to our family. Because I'd be damned if I let her walk all over me, lie her way out, and keep pretending everything was fine. No, she needed to see that I was serious, serious enough to end this, to make her regret ever cheating on me with that pompous karate instructor. I sat in my room that night, scrolling through the photos and recordings I'd collected. Each one made my blood boil more. I thought about the future, whether it was to walk away or to fight for us somehow. Honestly, I didn't know if I had it in me to forgive her, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to be the fool anymore. She had crossed a line, and now I was ready to make her pay. The moment I finally decided enough was enough, I knew it was going to change everything. I had all the evidence I needed: photos, videos, recordings, even some messages I managed to secretly extract. I wasn't just going to confront her with words. I wanted her to see everything laid bare, to understand how deep her betrayal ran. I prepared myself emotionally, knowing that whatever came next might shatter what was left of our marriage, if there was anything left at all. One evening, I told her I needed to talk. She looked at me with that same bitchy smirk, like she was already counting on twisting everything in her favor. "What now, Dave? You're always so dramatic. Can't we just have a normal evening?" That tone, that dismissive attitude, it made my blood boil. I didn't bother hiding the anger anymore. I pulled out my phone, played the biggest piece of damning evidence I had: screenshots of her messages with Mark, proof of the affair, and security videos showing her sneaking out to meet him. Her face twisted into that disdainful look she always wore when she thought she was in control. "What the hell is this?" she snapped, her voice rising in that bitchy tone that grated on my nerves. "You've been stalking me. Are you spying on me now?" She started to lie, of course. "It's all a misunderstanding, Dave. You don't know what you're talking about. These are just innocent conversations, nothing more. You're overreacting. Like you always do." I cut her off, voice steely. "No, Lisa, you're the one overreacting. You've been lying for months. You've been cheating on me with Mark right in our own house, in the Dojo office, while I was taking pictures of Jake's celebration. I saw you. I have the evidence. How many times did you see him? How long has this been going on?" I was trembling, but I wanted her to understand that I wasn't backing down anymore. She stared at me with that bitchy smirk, then suddenly scoffed and rolled her eyes. "You're so damn paranoid. I swear you're always accusing me of stuff. Maybe you're the one cheating, huh? Maybe I should be asking you that. That was her typical move, twist everything, accuse me of being insecure. I could see the defiance, but beneath it I also saw weakness. She was cornered now, and she knew it. The worst part was her denial, the way she spun her lies. This is all bullshit, Dave. You're just jealous because I'm better than you at everything. Mark and we're just friends, just talking about Jake's training. You're crazy if you think there's anything else going on. That's when I knew her words weren't just lies. They were desperate, pathetic attempts to save face. She didn't want to admit what she'd done, and she certainly didn't want to lose control of the situation. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my composure. Inside, I was boiling with rage, heartbreak, and a deep sense of betrayal. I told her I had enough. I'd been silent too long, trying to convince myself she'd just been caught up in some innocent flirtation, but I couldn't deny it anymore. She'd been lying to my face every day, sneaking around with Mark, and I'd been blind to it all. I told her I was done, that I was leaving her, that I wanted a divorce. Her face, that contemptuous smirk, slowly faded into pure fury. "You're not serious," she spat. "You think you're just going to walk away and ruin everything. You're so damn insecure." But I cut her off with a cold, hard stare. I wasn't about to listen to her bullshit anymore. As I walked out of the room, I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. The weight of everything was crushing, but at the same time, I knew I finally had the truth. No more lies, no more pretending. I had everything laid out in front of her, and she couldn't deny it anymore. I wasn't sure what the hell I was going to do next, but I knew one thing: I was done being the fool. The next few days were a blur of packing, legal calls, and planning my next move. I wanted to hit her where it hurt, make her understand how much she'd destroyed. I also knew I needed to protect my son, Jake, in all this chaos. Deep down, I felt numb, but I knew I had to stand tall. Whatever came, I'd face it. For myself, for my son, and for the principle that no one, especially not a bitchy, manipulative wife, was going to betray me and get away with it. The aftermath hit me harder than I expected. I stayed up most nights replaying every scene, every lie, every detail of her betrayal. The house felt empty without her, and even though I knew I needed to be strong for Jake, I couldn't shake the ache inside. The more I thought about Lisa's lies, her bitchy smirks, and her blatant cheating, the more I realized how much trust she'd shattered. It was like I was living with a stranger, someone I no longer recognized or wanted in my life. I moved out of the house a few days after I confronted her. I needed space to breathe, to think about what was next, and to figure out what I was going to do about our future. I rented a small apartment nearby, but honestly, I felt like I was still living in a fog. My mind kept circling back to those moments in the dojo office, her moans, her sneaky glances, the way she betrayed not just me but everything we had built together. I couldn't get those images out of my head, and I hated her for it. In the meantime, I had the evidence ready to go: screenshots of her messages, the security footage, recordings. I knew I had to decide whether to go the legal route or try to handle it privately. A part of me just wanted to ruin her reputation, to make her pay for what she'd done. I was furious enough to want revenge, but I also knew I needed to keep my head clear. I consulted with a lawyer and we discussed the divorce process. The legalities were a nightmare. She'd try every trick in the book to manipulate the situation, I was sure of that. But I also had proof that would make her look bad in court. The thing that really hit home was the impact on Jake. Seeing him happy, innocent, and unaware of the chaos around him made me realize I had to put aside my anger. I decided I'd fight for custody, not just for me but for him. She may have been a bitchy, lying cheat, but she was still his mother. That didn't mean I'd let her get away with her lies, though. I planned to be very clear about her betrayal, about how unfit she'd been in my eyes, and about how much she'd hurt us both. During this time, Lisa was trying to spin things to her advantage. She'd call, scream, cry, act like I was the one overreacting, the one controlling. She'd say I was jealous, insecure, and that I was trying to ruin her reputation. She even accused me of cheating, which was laughable considering I had stayed single and focused on my son. I let her spin her lies. I knew the truth. I had the evidence, and I was going to use it, whether in court or to expose her publicly if I needed to. I also started cutting ties with some of our friends who I could tell were already leaning toward her side. She was good at manipulation, and she'd already convinced some people I was just overreacting or jealous. But I didn't care anymore. I knew who she really was, and I knew she'd lied to everyone in her bitchy, manipulative way. That realization gave me a strange sense of relief, like I was finally waking up from a nightmare that had gone on for too long. One day, I sat down and thought about the whole mess. Yeah, she cheated. Yeah, she lied. But more than that, she showed her true character, selfish, manipulative, and unfaithful. I learned that trust is fragile, and some people will betray you in a heartbeat if it benefits them. It's painful to admit, but I've come to accept that I was blind for a long time. I let her walk all over me, believing her lies, thinking she was the woman I married. Now I'm at a crossroads. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I won't be the same man I was before. I've learned a hard lesson: trust carefully and never ignore the signs of a woman who's bitchy and manipulative. I also learned that revenge doesn't always have to be loud or destructive. Sometimes it's just about taking control, exposing the truth, and walking away with your head held high. I plan to fight for my son's stability, get my life back on track, and move forward. Lisa's betrayal was a punch in the gut, but it also made me realize what I truly deserve: respect, honesty, and loyalty. And if she thinks she can just lie her way out of this, she's got another thing coming. Because I'm done playing nice and now I'm playing for keeps. The final few weeks have been a whirlwind of legal battles, emotional exhaustion, and cold reality checks. I went through every emotion imaginable: anger, sadness, betrayal, even a strange sense of relief that I finally knew the truth. The court proceedings were brutal, but I had my evidence, and I made damn sure she couldn't spin her way out of it. Lisa's bitchy attitude, her manipulations, her lies, they all unraveled under the weight of what I presented. When the judge finally made the custody decision, I felt a strange mix of relief and heartbreak. I knew I had done everything I could to protect Jake, and I made it clear he'd be in a safe, stable environment with me. Lisa tried to argue, to twist things as usual, but her words just sounded hollow and desperate. I watched her face contort in that familiar bitchy sneer, and I realized that the woman I once loved was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize or want in my life anymore. Getting through the divorce was another chapter. It was messy, filled with accusations and petty fights, but I stuck to my guns. I refused to let her manipulate me again. Every time she tried to convince the court that I was the bad guy, I laid out the evidence, made it clear that her lies didn't hold up. I wanted her to understand that her actions had consequences, that her betrayal would define her, not me. The aftermath is still settling. I moved into a new place, a fresh start, trying to piece my life back together. I see Jake grow more confident every day, and that's what keeps me going. The pain of what she did will stay with me, but I refuse to let it consume me. I've learned to trust myself more, to recognize the signs of a manipulative, bitchy woman who's just looking out for herself. As for Lisa, I know she's probably still spinning her stories, still lying and pretending to be innocent. But I don't care anymore. I've seen her true face, and I've come to accept that some people are just untrustworthy. The thing I take away from all this is that betrayal cuts deep, but it also teaches you who you really are: stronger, wiser, and more cautious than ever before. In the end, I've realized that revenge isn't about destroying someone else. It's about reclaiming your life and dignity after they've tried to take it away. I'm moving forward, leaving the chaos behind and focusing on what matters: my son, my own happiness, and the hope that someday I'll find someone who's honest and loyal. Trust is fragile, but I've learned that it's worth protecting. And I won't let anyone, especially a bitchy, manipulative woman like Lisa, take that away from me again.